he'll be. Was that what that big breaker I accidentally pushed off did?
It could have been. It could have been.
You can blame it on me, and then you won't get in trouble.
Yeah, I'll probably get in trouble anyway. So.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, this is Bulletproof Estate Planning with your host, Estate Plan Stan, and we do this show every Friday morning from 8 to 9, and it's a fun show. It's a call-in show, interactive. And if I remember, I like to give the phone number up front because otherwise I forget. And it's 931-766-9393.
Or WD766 WDXE.
Wow, that's amazing how that just coincidentally worked out.
Yeah.
Well, I was lucky.
That was.
No, but yeah, there you go. Easy way to remember. Kind of like my website. You know, my website is Pierchoskiestatelaw.com, but years ago, one of my staff members came up with the domain estateplanstan.com. So
a lot easier
to spell. Easier to spell. So that takes you right to it. So anyway, let me tell you one thing about had a seminar scheduled for tomorrow. Okay, I'm saying that here my next seminar was January 24th, and well, you know how the weather changes by the day, and it was. And I finally made the call yesterday morning, and so we called everybody. And we actually punted it out to the next Saturday. It was going to be at the Star Theater on the square in Pulaski. And so we're punting it out to next Saturday, which I think is it the 1st? I think it's the 31st. 31st, yeah. And so it's going to be same time, same place. So it's 10 o'clock in the morning at the Star Theater, which is 105 North 1st Street in Pulaski. And I think, I guess hopefully all this stuff will be on the melt by then. But
I hope so.
But it'll certainly be salted up pretty good by then. They'll pick at it, for a couple of days, and they'll finally put a hurt on it. But so we moved that, and we managed to get a hold of everybody. We had a pretty good crowd. We managed to get a hold of everybody. I think there's just a couple left that we left voicemails for, and the girls are reaching out to them. Make sure they don't make the trip, but I imagine people just wouldn't anyway if they don't. But anyway. Safety is the first thing we're worried about. Don't anybody taking any chances. I had one gal that she told me she listens to me all the time on the radio, and she said, I don't care about the ice. I want to hear what Mr. Stan has to say. And I said, okay, dear, well, let's just push it off a week, and you'll get your wish.
Got to follow it.
Yeah, I don't want you getting hurt. But yeah, for what they're calling for, it's not just inconvenient. It can stay dangerous.
It could be very dangerous.
If you want to get out there and try and brave it. And I used to have a neighbor, he's passed away since, heck of a nice guy. But it was like, I think whenever it snowed, he was always the first one up. And what he would do is just drive around everywhere just to see how bad it was anywhere.
Yeah.
But he had a truck and 4-wheel drive, and so he never got stuck. But it's like, maybe it's better just to wait for the sun to come out and then make, So anyway, hope everybody stays safe. Remember, there's nothing really out there worth driving over. I mean, I really hate if somebody has a medical emergency or something, but in this kind of weather. But, if you forgot something like, a can of beans or something, don't go run to the store on Saturday afternoon or during Sunday. It's going to be rough. So hopefully we'll be all right. Anyway, we were talking off mic about some stuff, stuff that's in the news, and I just wanted to comment on a thing or two. And I'm not going to get on a soapbox and rant and rave. I know Jeff does sometimes. And
Jeff? Not Jeff.
I try to stay away from that because I know that's not what this show's about. But but there's some things about law that I'd like to make people aware of. And there's all this talk about protesting. Okay, and what you're seeing in the news is not that. That is not protesting.
No.
And the reason I know this, I grew up in the '60s, where we had a lot of this stuff over Vietnam. Okay, and in the aftermath of that, our Supreme Court and our courts really laid out how this concept of free speech and the ability to protest. And I was listening to, I guess it was Don Lemon, he was voicing over when they ran into that church, and he made the comment, he said, the Constitution doesn't say anything about when you have to protest. You can protest anytime. Now, I want to point out that there's something like 747 words in the Constitution of the United States, not counting the Bill of Rights, and nowhere will you find the word protest. It's not there. I mean, you're welcome to look, but you won't find it. It's not there. It actually falls under the part of the First Amendment. It falls under two places in the Constitution. It falls under the pursuit of liberty and happiness, right? And it also falls under the freedom of expression in the First Amendment. Okay, but the Supreme Court laid out rules for protesting. So freedom of expression, freedom of speech is just that, expressor. You can speak, you can hold signs, but you cannot touch, you cannot hit, you cannot interfere. That becomes criminal, and that's what people are, and they don't understand it because they keep saying, we have a right to protest. You do, but you don't have a right to do what you're doing. And that's why they get arrested, and then it looks like, well, they're doing things they're not supposed to do. That's exactly what you do when that happens. So the Supreme Court calls it time, place, and manner. And it used to be, the rules still are that and I also ran into some of this in nuclear power before I went to law school. I was in nuclear power, and people would, especially up in New England, they were protesting nuclear power plants. There are some folks that lived for something to protest, right? Anyway, they're protesting nuclear power plants. They would designate an area that they had to go to protest. It's like a back corner of the parking lot, and you can protest all you want, but you had to do it in that space. And they can do that. They can designate that. They designate that space so that that space does not interfere with normal operation.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a nuclear power plant, you can't interrupt the operation of the thing. I mean, it's health, safety, and welfare. If something like that doesn't work. Same thing with the police activities and the immigration control enforcement. So, I think it's a big misnomer of what protesting really is, but it's certainly not what we see. And you don't have a right to do it. So when people get arrested for it, I mean, they need to get arrested for it.
True.
Because otherwise, people just follow and say, well, they did that. They may have even let it go too long so far. Now everybody's pretty much feeling like they can do whatever they want. And you can't do it anytime you want. You can't protest at 1 o'clock in the morning someplace if it's disruptive. You got to keep it. You have the right of expression, not disruption, confusion, because that all starts to affect health, safety, and welfare of either other people or the general population. And that's what, same thing with free speech. You can't say anything you want. There's the old adage that, you can't say things like scream fire in a crowded theater. You say, well, that's free speech for me to yell fire, fire. They said, no, that's actionable. Why? Not because they don't want you to say it, because it affects the health, safety, and welfare of the people. That kind of speech is designed to create that kind of confusion. People can get hurt. But you can express ideas, thoughts, dislike of something. You can hold your signs up. You can do just about anything, but you can't interfere. That crosses the line. And they've been telling that since day one. But anyway.
Well, if people just use common sense.
And one of those protesters says, you guys are doing nothing while they're dragging children out and putting them in concentration camps. Now, if the person was even rational, which they're not, I'd like to say, show me a concentration camp the kids are in, because I keep up with this stuff pretty good, and there's no such thing. Now, you say that. What if somebody just believes that? What are they thinking? They don't take these people, children. They don't take children, stick them in concentration camps. There aren't any. So. But it's their ignorance of law is just amazing. It's going to get them in trouble, and it has gotten them in trouble. They made some arrests, and they're going to make more, and they need to. But anyway, I don't want to get off on that. I just thought the legal end of what protesting really is, where it came from, it's kind of like the right to privacy. You ever hear people talk about the right to privacy? Mm-hmm. Nowhere in the Constitution or all the amendments will you find the words right to privacy.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court carved that out of this phrase called health, safety, and happiness. Okay, the pursuit of life, liberty, and property is what I'm getting at. And to be private falls into there. And then we have all those laws against privacy. But that's where it is. But where does it have the word? Same thing with protest. The Constitution does not give you the right to protest. It gives you the right free expression.
Absolutely.
Freedom of speech and expression. It also gives you the right of the free exercise of religion. So that's and that's why the two clash.
Yep.
Anyway, I digress, I guess. But, I mean, it's a current event thing, and I always hone in on the legality of what people say and do like that. And this, what the news does. This is something that aggravates me about the news. Any news, it's like something happens, and they'll just show some person, some guy, some woman, somebody that has a sentence to say, and that's their coverage of it. I mean, it's like, why don't you put some scholar on that can explain what's going on, rather than just have. I'm not bashing the people's opinion and stuff, but it's not always a valid opinion or a legal opinion. So anyway, there's an old saying that says, "May you be blessed to live in interesting times," and I think we are maybe more blessed than we want to be. They certainly are interesting because it's historic. These times are
pull back a little bit.
These times are absolutely historic. So I'm glad I'm not missing it in a way, but.
But I'm not gonna be involved in it.
No, well, I mean, if I'm involved in it, I'm gonna be involved the right way.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna do, but.
Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah, I know you are. I know you're law-abiding citizen. I know you are. Anyway, thank you for taking over for Jeff this morning. I talked about the seminar. If you do want to go to that, it's going to be the following Saturday, which is January the 31st. And again, it's going to be at 10 o'clock in the morning. We call it Will's Trust in the Nursing Home, and it's at the Star Theater in Pulaski. I'll bring it up again in the hour. 105 North First Street, right on the square. So, let me bring up a couple things. You know, I like to keep up with court decisions in the area of law that I practice. And in some areas have a lot of them, like when I used to do criminal defense law. I mean, the rules on search and seizure were modified, and DUI were modified and changed rapidly. And so you had to keep up with it. You know. But in estate planning, not so much. But it's easy to keep up on. But I also keep up on the rules that come out of other states and rulings that come out, because a lot of our states, out of 50 states, I think we have something like 27 of them are under the Uniform Trust Code. So we have a lot of similarities. We are different, but they're relatively, the basics, the big foundational things are kind of the same. So, you know, something comes out of, you know, South Dakota, which is a Uniform Trust Code state, you can glean some pertinent information for us, because it's, you know, and I keep up with that. And I wanted to mention two that I've been following that I thought were pretty interesting. One was a little more towards trust. One was more a little towards nursing home. It was a aggravating situation that just the kind of court case, it just made you mad to read it. And I'll go over that. So I didn't bring the citations with me. I didn't bring anything in with me today, so I'll just shoot from the hip. But one of them was I'm extremely excited about. Now, we had a case that said some of the same stuff about 10 years ago. But this was another one that said the same thing. And when you read court cases, I feel need to go with a little background here. When you read a court case, why is that important? Well, when the courts decide something, it's called precedent or stare decisis. And what that is, or Latin, and what that means is once settled, always settled. So if you read a court case, any court case, I don't care if it's criminal or civil or what, when the court speaks, you know, it'll start out with the facts of the case, what the lower courts found, what rules apply. Then finally you get to the point where the court goes into their opinion, okay? They never say anything new, unless it's a question they've never had yet, okay? It's called a question of first impression. So, but what they'll say is something like, back in Smith versus Jones in 1998, we ruled that, you know, this. And they'll say, and as that applies to this case, yeah, that's the way it is, because that's what we said back then. And if you go back to 1998 and read Smith versus Jones, it will have referred something that they said in the 70s, or you know what I mean. And you go back to that case in the 70s and read it, and it will be one that reaches back to a case before that. So and the answer is always the same. And very rarely do they feel a need to change stuff like that. But it happens every once in a while, but it's very rare. And like I said, the only other time that's important is if you ask a question of the court and it's never been asked. And it's called a question of first impression. And the court says, well, since this has come up, we need to lay down what the rules are going to be, so we have this uniformity among all the courts. So when the Supreme Court says this is the way we're going to treat this, all the states have to treat it. That's mandatory precedent, you know what I mean? And they have to follow that. So that being said, you know, we do these asset protection trusts, and I talk about it a lot in my seminar. Asset protection trust is one where you can put property into it now, and then if long-term care ever becomes an issue in your life or your spouse's life, all that property in that trust is 100% protected and out of the equation. You know, it's not even considered assets that you own. You still own them, but for purposes of eligibility of TennCare, they're not part of the eligibility process, so they're protected. And you know, that works very well, that trust. We do a lot of them, it works very well. But about 10 years ago, there was a case that pointed out that these kind of asset protection trusts, and when it was reading the case, the trust was part of the record that they talked about. It does exactly what mine do, the asset protection trust. Because, you know, it's not, when I say mine, I didn't invent the thing, you know, it's trust law. But the kind that I do a lot for asset protection. And the court said this is a very viable tool that people can use, and it is definitely in the best interest of an individual to do this. Which I thought, you know, talk about hitting the nail right on the head. You know, they say it's a great tool to use, and you know, the high courts are saying if you do one of these, or if somebody does it for you because you're like incapacitated and they do it for you, it is definitely in the principal's best interest to protect property from long-term care. I mean, you can't get better than that. Now, when you look at court precedent, I like to say I like to do what the winners do and not do what the losers do, because if you get to court and they rule against you, they explain why, and if they rule for you, they explain why. So, if they say this is a good tool and it's in your best interest to have one, that just reaffirms everything that we do, why it's important to do. Because a lot of times people say that's almost too good to be true. Will that thing work? Will they really protect all that property from long-term care? I thought they could just go after everything you have. And the answer is, yeah, they work, and the courts even support them. Well, lo and behold, we have another one came out. It's not in the high courts yet. It's actually out of Murfreesboro, and I'm keeping up with it. But the lower courts have already ruled pretty much the same thing, and they cited that case I'm talking about 10 years ago as their reason to come to that conclusion. So it's always exciting to me when the courts give a stamp of approval to what we're doing. And that way, when I get the question, does this really work, or can you do this? I can cite that and say, well, if the courts say it's okay, then it's okay with me, because what the courts say is law. We call it common law because it's not always codified. Sometimes they'll say something and it'll end up in statute, but it doesn't always end up that way. So anyway, that works in our favor to know that we're doing this. We've got the court's blessing. So if our trust gets challenged, or TennCare says, well, you can't do this, we're going to consider all these assets countable and available to you for the cost of care. Well, we know if we get into court, we know what they're going to say. They're going to say what they've said before. They're not going to change it just because of what the facility is doing with you. And we know what the answer is going to be before we get there. Now, the goal is that those places, like the facility, surely they have legal departments or somebody that will advise them, we're not taking this to court because we're going to lose if we're claiming this, if we're claiming the trust doesn't protect property. So, and that's usually what happens, but the facts in Murfreesboro were kind of unique, and I'm following it. I don't think it's going to go to a higher court yet, because I think they got the right answer, and if the attorneys are worth their salt, they'll say, no sense appealing this, we can't win. But there are some that just do it anyway, so they say, well, we got a great chance of winning, and then get paid to do the appeal, and they say, well, sorry, it didn't go your way. You should say that to them up front. Say, and I have done that. People say, I want to appeal this, and say, well, hire somebody else, because I can't win that one. We're in the wrong, our position's not good, it won't win. It's like, well, it might. I said, well, I know it. There's no, it's not that it might. The only kind of it might is if you get a rogue judge that says, yeah, that's great, and then of course the aggrieved party is going to run it up to the next court. And if the court sticks to the law, which they do, and the higher you get, the more they stick to the law, and that's the answer. That's going to be the answer in the end. So I would never do it, but you can always find somebody. Anyway, I get excited about that because it's exactly what we do, and I got the full force and weight of the courts saying it's okay to do that, and we will enforce it if it comes to us. We'll enforce what you're doing because that's okay to do. It's a viable estate planning tool, and it is definitely in your best interest to do such a thing. So, and then the other case is one that I said was a little aggravating, and it didn't happen around here. This is something from a couple of months ago. And I was reading up on it because I get a lot of publications that talk, summarize some of these things. This case was just annoying. It really wasn't about trusts or anything that we do, but it was about an incident in a nursing home facility. Now, it's not about people getting beat up or elder law where people are worried about being abused. And it was kind of an abuse in a way, but the circumstances just were egregious. Okay, and here's the way it went down. There was a gal that was in the nursing home, full-skilled nursing facility, right? Not assisted living or home care, but she was in a facility. She needed help with at least 3 or 4 of the 8 activities of daily living, and that would qualify you. So they help her. And she was very advanced dementia. So, from the facts that I read in the case, it was hard to communicate. When you've got advanced dementia, maybe you can communicate, but it's not remembered, or it's gone, or it's just not always there. But she was at that state. So, and she needed help when she would take a shower and a bathe. And there were, why it took 2 people, I don't know, but I guess maybe they're worried about people falling. I'm not at the nursing home, and I don't know how that's done. And normally I don't bash the people that give the care, because they're great people that do that. And I want to be able to say right up front, the people that help elderly people when they really get bad off is a special kind of person. I mean, it just is. It amazes me how patient they are, how loving they are, how caring they are. But apparently, and this is a case where it's not that they weren't that, but they just did something stupid. And anyway, this gal, she needed help showering. There was I don't know why they use male help nurses, I guess you call them, to help.
Mm-hmm.
But there was one male and a female, and they were and a girl. They were helping her shower. Okay, the gal the patient was female, and there was a younger male and a younger female that were the assistants. I guess I'll call them nurses. Okay, I don't want to be offensive to. I guess that's what you call those folks, and they're the caregivers. Anyway, they're giving her a shower. But here's the thing that was. I mean, I just can't believe somebody didn't think of this. But the gal had a cell phone, and she often talked to her boyfriend at work, apparently. And during this shower, she's talking to her boyfriend and had him on what they call FaceTime.
Mm.
And so during this thing, this woman, the patient, was videoly exposed. I mean, she had, you're in the back shower, you're naked, right? And this was exposed to somebody outside, which is her boyfriend. Now, it wasn't like she had the phone on and was showing this person the person. You know what I mean? She had put it on FaceTime, propped it somewhere in the shower where she was talking, and at some point in time, the other people on the other end could see what was going on. Now, that got out because the other person there reported it, the other nurse, okay, reported. That's how it got started. Otherwise, nobody would have really known about it, right? But that got started. So, and the family was livid. The family of this patient was just livid. I mean, I would be too.
I would
mean,
too.
I like to be peaceful, but I think I'd be at my end on that one. You'd have to restrain me for a while. But so they sued, and it got to court. And it got to court, and of course, it was egregious, right? I mean, really, have a little respect. A 7-year-old would have thought of that, I would think. First of all, why are you talking to your boyfriend while you're conducting your job in the first place? Even if you were typing things into the computer, you shouldn't be doing that. So there's mistake number one. And two is to put them on FaceTime. If you're going to talk to them, talk to them. Why put them on FaceTime? And you're in a shower with somebody, I mean, who wouldn't have thought that was going to be a problem? But they didn't. And the other person was the one that reported. You have to imagine what was said. Hey, you probably shouldn't be doing that. Maybe so she probably told not to do it, turn it off at the time. But anyway, it happened. Those are the facts. And so they sued. And here's the thing that really grinded my gears was the defense. I mean, the facts were pretty egregious. You can't argue the facts. It happened. They had a lot of testimony. Even the boyfriend, admitted that he saw it, but they started saying, well, we didn't intend to do that, And of course, that failed because intent doesn't matter on some of those things. But then the defense said, well, wait a minute, she didn't even know. They're saying it was embarrassing, it was degrading, it was her dignity, and it's all those things. But they said listen, her dementia made it so, and if it's true, she had no idea that she got filmed with his phone and other people saw her naked. She had no clue because they talked to her, and she was low in communication. Even if she did know it, she didn't remember it, but she was just like completely oblivious to it. And they said, so no harm, no foul. And the court, when you read the court's decision, they pretty much were offended by that defense as well. Mm. And they hammered on it. They cited a lot of case law and said, you don't have to, you don't have to know about it for it to be a problem, Anyway, so that's a set of facts. I think hopefully that sent some kind of ripple through the long-term care industry that, there's kind of things you shouldn't do when you're taking care of people.
When you're giving the patient a shower, don't get on FaceTime.
Oh my gosh. Of course, we don't even want to be that specific because, okay, I'm not on FaceTime, but I'm on something else.
Yeah.
I mean, privacy is privacy, and it's invaded enough for you being there, but that's at least by permission, Mm. But the permission wasn't forever. Who else was on the other end of the phone? It could have been a football team.
Yeah.
It could have been a school class. I mean, it could have been anybody on the other side of that Facebook, or not Facebook, but whatever the heck it is, FaceTime. Yeah. So it was just terrible that happened, and I was sort of happy that the court was as hard on them as they were, but because that kind of action needs to be corrected.
It does.
And you have to you make an example of it, because it prevents reoccurrence, at least that's the
Yeah.
design of it. Same thing we talked about earlier with the protesting, you
Yeah.
gotta make examples and prevent reoccurrence. So,
Got a phone call coming
I
in.
didn't even hear it ring.
Good morning, WDXE, you on the air with us?
Yes, I have a question. I noticed there were some new changes in TennCare in 2026, and I think it's Tennessee that this is on. And I was wondering if any of these things that are coming about, changes in Tennessee affects in any way writing a trust. One thing that caught my eye was that of the $2,000 that's that you can have a month, that only $70 goes to the person, everything else goes to the state. And I was wondering if that would affect how much they kept out of the trust. I'm still not clear exactly how that works. And another thing I did was run the prices of assisted living and nursing homes, especially with TennCare, how much they're going up. If he has any comments, and he may not have any today, but I just thought that was interesting. If someone was writing a trust today, would he change any advice based on any of these new things that they're changing?
All right, we appreciate
I
you
don't know
calling.
enough about the changes. I've got a list of them, but the thought occurred to me, would he change advice in any way just based on any of these changes? Are they relevant?
Okay, all right, we'll see what he says.
What does he say? Okay, good question, but there's a couple things in there. Right off the bat, the only changes I'm aware of, and I keep up with these pretty diligently, are the ones that came out of the One Big Beautiful Bill that was signed in July, are working their way into, just a lot of those things. They signed that law in July of 2025, but a lot of them said this takes effect in 2028 or 2026 or so. And I spent a radio show a while back where I itemized all those, that how any of those changes affected what we do, and they were very minimal, very minimal. And so it does not affect anything I would do with a trust. There's nothing there that I do different because of a trust. There's some things in home valuation that's going to take place in 2028. It's not even really a bad thing, but instead of it being, it's capped at like $1 million, something like that. But and there's a lot of the other things don't affect us at all. Like there's part of the One Big Beautiful Bill was there mandatorily increasing certain nursing staff at these places and stuff like that, which doesn't have anything to do with me. It ended up being probably better care and stuff like that. So, but I do want to talk about what she talked about when she started mentioning the $2,000 and stuff. And I don't mean this the way it's say, but that was all wrong. I want to kind of correct it. So I'm not being judgmental. I'm just saying, you hear stuff, you don't get the whole story, and then you end up, the $2,000. She said the $2,000 you're allowed to have, and she said a month. It is not. That is $2,000 period. So we were talking about two things: income and assets. And so your income is a monthly thing, okay? And that's the only thing that's monthly. And your income is your income. It's your Social Security. Maybe you get a pension too. It's the sum of all your monthly income, and that is what goes to the nursing home. Okay. So in other words, here's a good rule of thumb: all your income goes to the cost of care. But there are some things you can take out of there. Okay, so if you get your income, you can take out what you're paying for Medicare. Now, most people on Social Security, it gets automatically deducted, but it's the same thing. It's taken out and paid to Medicare. So, but you think of it in terms of that. There's a few things you can take out of your gross income before all the income goes to care. That's one of them. The other thing is this $70 personal needs allowance. I mean, God bless TennCare, they will let you have $70 a month. Okay. Now, I don't know about you, and I'm not a big Walmart person. Not that I'm a big fan, I just don't like to go. But I don't get in and out of Walmart under $70. I don't know if anybody does. So I don't know what that. It used to be 50, and they raised it. And God bless them, they raised it $20 a month. That was big of them, wasn't it?
It was.
And they say, oh, it's so you can buy razor blades or get a haircut. I don't know what goes through their minds sometimes. But anyway, so the income. And your income is capped. Okay, we are an income cap state. So they just changed in January. I didn't commit the numbers to memory. I just got the sheet the other day. But in all 2025, the income cap was $2,901, and I looked at it. It's still 2,900 and something like 54 or something like that. It's up a little bit, but not much. That's a cap on the income. Okay, now So the $2,000 has nothing to do with that. This is the cap. So if your income is $2,000, okay, your Social Security and your pension together is exactly let's make it $3,000. The way I would say, let's make it something under the cap. So $2,500. You get $2,500 for your income when it's all said and done with. When it gets to you, it's, I don't know, 500 is taken out to pay for your Medicare and your, you can take out some more to pay your supplement, because those are things you pay privately for, right? But it's part of Medicare. So, Part A everybody gets, Part B you got to pay for on a sliding scale. That's deducted from your income when you're on Social Security. And then if you're buying a supplement, like Medicare Advantage or one of those other plans, you usually pay those. They don't deduct that because those are on the private market, but you can take out the money every month to pay that. You're allowed to pay for medical insurance before you send the income to them. Then the final thing you're allowed to take out is at $70 a month. Everything that's left goes to the cost of care. There's no getting out of that. It's always been that way, and I can't do anything about that. Sometimes we can shift some from spouse to spouse if one's really low, but I'm not going to get into that. That's an exception rather than the rule. But the rule is all income goes to the cost of care. Now, that's income, and those are pretty much all the rules for income. Now let's shift to assets, which are things you own. Your savings account. It's not money you're getting every month, it's what you have in the bank. Your home, your cars, your stuff, right? The stuff you own, investment account, stuff like that. Your assets have to be $2,000 or less. And it's not a per month thing. That is an absolute thing. It's all the time you're in the care. If you go over $2,000 a month, you risk ineligibility. Because they do a reassessment every 12 months. You do this big old application to get in. It's like 16 pages long, takes 3 months to get approved. They complain about things you fix, you maybe have a hearing, you get approved. Well, every 12 months they do like this little mini application, like, are you still eligible? It's a little less, but if they see that they'll say, okay, send us some recent bank statements so we can see if you're still eligible. And if it goes over $2,000, it's a problem. Now, it's a fixable problem, but it's a problem. You don't want to do it. So when I say you have to have $2,000 and I do 10 care patients, I have a bank account that's theirs where all their things get deposited in, and I keep it around $1,500. I don't like to be on the edge of eligibility because 2001 is a problem. So, but that's a resource. That's what you own. So here's what can confuse people. Let's just say we have the limit, $2,000 in a bank account. That's what we own. And let's say you get your $2,500 worth of income. Well, when they deposit it, you're going to have $4,500 in your bank account. Or something less when they take out the other stuff, right? Well, that same calendar month, you're going to pay all of that to the facility. So, we're on radio and it's hard to do, but if you got a bank account, it's like a jar. You got it filled up with $2,000, and then every month it goes to $4,500 when you get your income, but every month it always goes back to $2,000 because you have to pay all that out to the facility. You got this fluctuating bank account, but what you own in the bank account, the asset, is always $2,000, right? Because it goes up, it goes down, it goes up because income deals with in the month received. So if you get income in the month of January and you pay it to the facility in the month of January, it never becomes a resource. It only becomes a resource if you still have it in the first calendar day of the next month. Then it changes from income to an asset. But with the income you do with the facility, it always goes out, goes back to them. So the $2,000 is, it's not per month, and the $70 for personal needs does not come out of the $2,000. That comes out of your income. If you need something more for personal needs, say you get your $70 a month, but you really need $200 a month, which might be closer, that's got to come out of your $2,000, and that's just a one-time amount. So you can exhaust that doing that. So what some people do is they take the $70 and they don't spend it on, and they put it in the bank account, and it can build up. I've had it happen, and then they call me and say they got their recertification problems or paperwork, and you get the bank account. It's got $2,300 in it because I said, what have you been doing with the personal needs allowance? Well, mom doesn't need anything, so we just put it in the bank, and now we've over-resourced ourselves because we kept it. We can fix that. It's just kind of a hassle. It's something we don't have to. We wouldn't have to do if we didn't have to do it, Yeah. But anyway, so hopefully that cleared that up.
Well, we had a call coming in, but they don't know.
Well, not because I talk too much.
Yeah.
I can't hear it ring, or I would have stopped for the call.
Well, I can turn it
No,
up.
you just tell me. You just tell me.
right.
I suspected that because I saw you looking, and I sort of wrapped up what I was saying. But I will stop if there's a call. So if you want to call back.
So if you want to call back, 766-9393. So give us a call. Welcome call-ins during the
That's right.
Bulletproof Estate Planning.
Only nice people call me.
Only,
If
yes.
you're going to call and chew us out, don't do it.
Yeah, don't do that.
The phone won't work if that happens.
That don't work.
Okay.
Good morning, WDXE. You're on the air with us.
Yeah, I was gonna ask him a question about, I'm retired from the military, and, I never did get my letter, retirement letter, and it's been almost 16 years, and I've been trying to get it, and finally I went down there, I think it was in June the 29th, had to go to the Redstone Arsenal, and finally got it started, and they told me that they would have it fixed within 60 days. And it's done been almost 7 months, and I still ain't got nothing done. And now they telling me they only gonna go back 6 years. And I was just wondering if I had something I could do about it.
Okay.
All right, he'll answer that on the air for you, okay?
All right,
All right, thank you. Good question.
It is a good question. Unfortunately, I don't have a great answer because I'm not, he's talking about the VA, you know, and administration, and I'm not. And I do some of that, but eligibility wise, but I kind of know how some of that works. Now, I'll be glad to look into one thing that he mentioned that I'm not sure of. And it's just because I don't do any of what he's trying to do. He's trying to get his retirement. A lot of times I deal with people that do get their retirement and they will pay them a lump sum for back. Okay. And now that lump sum, you know, if we're talking about protecting it or eligibility purposes, it's kind of a problem, right? But it's lump sum of income. So what is it? Is it income or is it a resource? Well, there's a rule on that, and it technically is a resource, but you have to deal with it. You have 9 months to deal with it. So I'm familiar with those rules, but he hasn't even gotten that yet. What I don't know is when they now tell him they're only going back 6 years. That's news to me. I've seen them go back. I'm going to say that I think the longest I've seen them go back is probably, it was more than 6 years. It was like 8 or 10 because it was a big lump sum. It was like $80,000 this person got for X number of years. And so I'm not sure why they say it only goes back 6 years. There would be a retroactive fee. Now, why it takes them 7 months when it's supposed to be in 60 days, I'm at a complete loss. I mean, I wish I was a fly on the wall there, but I probably couldn't handle the chaos and confusion that I would see.
Well, I've got the answer there.
They just don't. I mean, it's like dealing with TennCare.
Yeah.
They are just not efficient, not proactive. Kind of don't care. I mean, I hate to say that, but I'm calling it the way I see it. I mean, if they cared, stuff would get done, and it doesn't, and it doesn't get done very well. And I think the VA is better than it used to be, but I think it still has a long way to go. So I don't have a solution for that other than to continue to bug them. Although I will say, I think it's, I don't know what radio station it is I listen to. Can I say another radio station? There was an advertisement that I wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's that Super Talk out of Nashville, 99.7 WTN. I hear a commercial on there. I do a show on that on Sunday nights too, so I hear a commercial on that. Or no, I think that might have even been local, a Huntsville station. But I'll see what I can find. There's a husband and wife team that are disabled vets. Now this is more disability, but they gotta know about the pension, is what I'm saying. Husband and wife team, their name escapes me, but they talk about on the advertisement that, you know, vets go in and try to get these benefits that they're entitled to. I think they kind of deal mostly in disability, and they just get red tape to death, you know, and they don't know what to do. It's like, well, you know, it's like this. You fill out a form and you give it to them. And let's say you did something wrong. You didn't check a box. They don't call you and tell you what you did wrong. It just sits there. It's okay, this is not right. It sits there until 2 months later you call and say, hey, where the hell's my stuff? They say, well, you didn't do the paperwork. You made a mistake here. You didn't mark this box. It's like, why didn't somebody call me and tell me you did? They don't do that. In other words, they don't. Could they not at least do that? I mean, these people get paid, right? Is it asking too much? If somebody's trying to get the benefits they deserve, and they make an honest mistake because your paperwork is so convoluted and impossible to understand, to notify them and do something wrong. I mean, it's kind of their job, right? I mean, their job is to fulfill these benefits for people that they're deserving, and it's the complete opposite. It's like an imposed deterrent. You know, don't. Anyway, I'll look and see what I can find and bring something with me next Friday.
Okay.
Or I'm going to say, I think it was a Huntsville station I was listening to. I think it was 99.1 or something like that. It's one of the few stations I get well in my garage when I'm at home, and because I'm kind of rural. I can get some other ones, but they don't come in clear, but I can get that one for some reason, and I listen to it. It's not even my favorite music, but it's, anyway, I think it was on that station about this husband and wife team. I think they're relatively local, not like here somewhere. And they help people get these benefits. Now, they talk a lot about disability because they often will have somebody on there that says, hey, I'm a disabled vet. I tried everything. They had a pretty impactful commercial where the guy said, I'm a injured vet, and he said, I've never given up on anything in my life. That's the way those people are. They don't quit, right? He said, but I finally, first time in my life, I quit when I was trying to get these benefits. I tried to do it for 4 years and it just kept going. Nothing ever happened. I just gave up. And then they said that there's these people that they both, husband and wife, both went through this routine and have apparently learned it and mastered it. And now they help others. But they've got to have some good clues or somebody they can point this guy in the right direction to deal with the pension, the retirement part of it. So I wish I had a better answer, but I'm going to try really hard to remember to do that. Find out what that was.
Okay.
And I can't remember, now that I think of it, I don't think it was the national station. I think it was the Huntsville station. I'll find out who they are. And like I said, if I would call them, I mean, even though they maybe just do disability, I'm sure they understand the VA system.
They understand it, they could probably be of good
Yeah,
help.
now again, now I'm actually, I was VA accredited. I just got so few calls for that. I got to check and see if I'm still current. You got to stay current, take certain amount of classes every year, but I don't think I am anymore, but it wouldn't take much to be that way. But it's very rare that I get that, because there's a lot of weird rules with the VA, and there's people out there that do that. But I'm talking about not the disability, I'm talking about the aid and attendance, which is, aid and attendance is the military's version of TennCare.
Yeah.
Medicaid, okay? They have their own version, their own set of rules, and they're different. Some are better than the rules for TennCare. Not too many of them are worse, but they're a little more beneficial. Like, we talk about that 5-year gifting rule. They used to not have that at all. Back in, I want to say 2020, they adopted that, but it's like a 3-year rule. So actually, if you're trying to get long-term care eligible, you can get it sooner, you can get something sooner from the VA aid and attendance while you're waiting for the 5 years for the 10-year rule to clear, or the 5-year rule to clear for TennCare. They can work well together on long-term care. The gentleman that called was calling about his retirement, which is the pension. Actually, I hate to say pension with the VA because pension means something else than retirement pay. So let's call it retirement. Maybe, there is a case where everything seems veiled everything's cloaked in veiled language, and it's hard to get through. Why they aren't more helpful than that, I don't know. I remember when President Trump was here the first term, he did a clock cleaning of the VA, so it got a whole lot better. But I think it still needs a lot of work, just for things like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of vets out there, and they not only do they have they served, some of them have gotten hurt. Some of them just get. I mean, back in my day in the Vietnam years, people just get screwed up. I mean, it's just the traumatic PTSD stuff. And, they deserve help, and there's money for that. And why it gets so hard to get, it bothers me. It shouldn't. So, but thank goodness there are people out there like that that kind of specialize in that, And of course, you don't have to pay when you're doing the VA. You can't even charge somebody for aid and attendance, to get them eligible. That's not even something that somebody can charge for. But they got people that do it, and they get paid some other way other than for actually doing that.
Yeah.
So there's help out there. I wish I could give it to you right now on the phone, but my memory's like yours, I guess. I do remember that it's out there. Maybe if you Googled husband-wife team that help veterans with disability, that might come up.
That might.
It might. And if I heard the name, I think I would recognize it. It's kind of funny feeling it starts with an M, but again, I'm sorry. If you can listen to me next Friday or call my office at 931-363-7222, I'll try to find it and refer it to you, because I think that would be a good place to start.
It would be. I believe you're right.
But anyway, like I said, I wish I could help more, but it's like TennCare. They take forever. They're wrong more than half the time.
Yeah.
I can't fix that. There's nothing I can do. I go run for TennCare director, I guess, but they're not going to hire me. I'm probably way overqualified. I actually understand how it works. You couldn't have somebody like me in there. It would be efficient.
Yeah. They wouldn't
or it would do what it's supposed to do. So, but that makes me a good advocate for people because, you know, just like his frustration, we have those same frustrations dealing with TennCare. And it's, you know, I often say if there's any area of law where people, you know, general population, need an advocate, man, it is in TennCare. Because they will run all over you, and I don't even know if they intend to do it. I think that just the incompetence and the chaos and the confusion and the misunderstanding, it happens. I don't even think they intended to run over you, you just get completely left out. But I can also see where it's maybe intended, you know? Because sometimes they'll deny an application, we call them inappropriate denials, because it was a wrongful denial. But I got thinking one day and I thought, you know, you're talking about a lot of money when you're talking about the money TennCare shells out, right? Because if you got $2,000 worth of income and a $10,000 nursing home bill, they get all your income, but TennCare pays the other 8. So they shell out a lot of money. So I got thinking one day and I thought, what if you had 10 cases and they all suffered an inappropriate denial, okay? And 3 of them were mine. I go toe to toe with them. I'll go on a hearing and I'll always be successful because I always have been. And so, but now I think about that, so I get those people eligible and approved. But now that aren't there 7 out there that they don't have to pay? Now think of it in terms of a numbers game. It's like, okay, we can live with Mr. Pierchoski getting his people eligible, but there's all these others that don't have him, and we get away with it because when they deny you, your only remedy is to appeal. So I ask this question: if you don't understand the rules, how the heck are you going to appeal it? Because what happens though in appeal, you get into you get in front of an administrative judge, and you have, you know, you're the appellant, so you're the one moving party, you're the one that speaks first, and you have to tell the court basically what they did wrong and what they should have done that was right. And then, you know, it only makes sense when you back that up with the statutory authority. You say, here's what they did wrong, here's what they should have done, here's the statute that explains how to do it, here's what they actually did, and this is why it was wrong. And so to do it right, they would have ended up with eligibility and stuff like that. How can you have no hope in an appeal unless you know what you're talking about? And so, and you know, I'm not bashing anybody, the average guy doesn't know that, and who would? And he's not gonna spend time doing it, just, because when you're a person not involved in this, that's your only case, is the person, your family member that goes there, right? That's the only thing that matters to you is that one case. So you're not going to spend the time, energy, and effort to understand how it works, because the rules are voluminous. That's the best word I can think of, the strongest word. They are voluminous, and that's what we do. We know and understand them, and that's why we're successful with it, because we understand it better than they do, which baffles me too. I mean, it's one of the few agencies I've ever dealt with that is like that.
Yeah, and one thing about them, this has nothing to do with what you're talking about, but I was thinking about it. You go to the drugstore to get your medication, and the druggist will tell you, well, TennCare don't pay for this no more. You've got to pay this out of pocket. Okay, well, I got to have it, so I'll pay out of pocket. Well, then a couple of weeks later, you get a 6-page letter from TennCare telling you that they didn't pay for that medicine. How efficient is that?
You know, I like the fact, I agree, but that brings up a point that TennCare letters, I swear to gosh, I don't know who sat down and thought of how we're going to write letters from TennCare, but there's got to be some kind of psychological thing they came up with, because they are, like you said, 6 pages. I mean, then they give it to you in 3 languages.
Yeah.
And then they always add the same thing in every letter. Like, here's a letter about a state recovery, here's a letter about this, here's a letter about that, and they're multi-pages, and they say one thing, right? Now here's something, and a lot of states do it. So I really wonder I think there's some kind of psychological effect. And here's a classic example. I think I might have talked about this with Jeff maybe just the last couple of weeks, but I'll talk about it again. I think we have just a couple minutes left. I'll do it fast. There's the thing we call it QMB and SLMB. It's QMB, which is Qualified Medicaid Plan benefits, and the other one is SLMB. And these are things where Medicaid will help pay your Medicare payments if you fall below. It's a very low level of income. It's poverty level, okay? They will help pay for it. So when I do cases, 100% of them don't qualify for QMB and SLMB, and I know that. I know. But here's what you get. You get a letter. We file a letter for TennCare long-term care, right? Well, they take it upon themselves to see if they're eligible for the QMB or the SLMB, right? Which I didn't really ask them to do, but they do it anyway. And you get this letter back and you open it up and the first page on the front in big bold letters says, you have been denied. And you're thinking, oh shoot, but if you go and look and then you start reading it, you've been denied of Quimby and you've been denied of Slim B. And it's like, well, no, you know what, Sherlock, I knew that in the first place, okay? And then you get it on page 5, in regular size font and not bold, you'll see something that says, you have been approved for TennCare long-term care, which is what we wanted.
Yeah.
Why this sticker shock effect to people that when you send them the letter, and like you said, it's 15 pages long, and you can't find what you're looking for in there. I mean, I know how to read them. It's extremely frustrating, but now I know how to read them. I just go through the first 5 pages. I don't even look at them. And I go look to see if we've been approved. And then a couple pages after that, it'll list what our patient liability is. And I know how to weed through it now. And you get to the end, and it's in some kind of Arabic. The whole thing is it looks like a chicken walked through the pad and walked across the page. I mean, it's just, and it's like, it's only in 3 different languages, and they're languages are the ones you would not expect it to be in.
No.
So this TennCare letter is a mystery to me. It is the most inefficient thing I have ever seen.
It's crazy.
If you change the password on your portal, I don't use the TennCare Connect portal, but if you change the password on it, you get about 3 letters in the mail saying, "Hey,
you changed your password.
You changed it." It's like, no kidding. I know I did it because it was me that did it, you knucklehead. Anyway, we're getting close to the end.
Getting close.
Seminar that was Saturday, tomorrow, has been postponed till the next Saturday, January the 31st at the Star Theater, right on the square in Pulaski, 105 North First Street. Will's Trust in the Nursing Home starts at 10 o'clock in the morning. If you want to come to it, sign up. The mayhem that we're going to see this week should be on the melt by then.
And of course, your office is not far from the Star Theater.
No, it's at 304 West Jefferson. We moved 2 blocks from where I used to be.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, we moved, but it's 2 blocks.
Okay.
We're in the old State Farm Insurance Building. So,
Okay.
But again, you can see one from the other.
Well, last time I was in Pulaski, that's the reason I couldn't find your office.
Maybe. My sign's still up, but I got to get it down. So anyway, Pierchoski Estate Law, Pierchoski Law for 931-363-7222 or estateplanstand.com. And where does that leave us? Right about right.
We're just about there. So.
Okay. Thanks, LB.
Appreciate you coming in and
thanks for filling in for Jeff.
Anytime.
New Mexico and Texas. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. A massive storm full of snow and sleet coating a lot of the south and ice.
The way they advertise this storm, you'd think the Russians and Chinese would say, hey, it's a good time to invade. 200 million people are going to be stuck in their homes. Oh, it's probably a good time for us to